Today we are lucky enough to have the ambassador, amazing mother, and the yoga and CrossFit coach at the Powerhouse and Lululemon, Katy Irmen. Today we will have an in-depth discussion on what drives personal change and growth not only in the gym, but in life in general. Finally, this episode of the Iron Huddle podcast is sponsored by Torque Strength and Conditioning. Torque Strength and Conditioning is not your typical training center. They offer many different programs to fit your needs, such as Torque CrossFit, Torque Barbell, Torque Fit, personal coaching, and youth and teen development. And we hope you enjoy the podcast.
We do it all the time. We have these little irritations, these disturbances, emotional disturbances, things that get in our kitchen, get us people, the way people are, the way people talk to you, the way people interact. Like, you know what I'm talking about. And it's really interesting if you can, for one whole day, watch it, like, let something happen and watch it for a second, like, take a deep breath and, like, listen to what your reaction is. What am I about to say? What am I about to do? And then be like, am I going to say this because this person reminds me of my stepdad who was kind of abusive, and so I'm going to snap even though maybe that's not the situation? Like, am I going to see this situation through my own filter, take it in, and then fire back at you based on what my life experience is? Or can we teach people to say, like, okay, well, and look at what's in front of us, right? And so one of the best things that I learned in yoga teacher training was that the way people treat you never has to do with you, most of the time. It's always like what's going on for them, right? So that day that you said, like, let's go, right?
Yeah.
It hit something in her. And you could have said it 99 other times in the training sessions, but today it hit something. And she, it hit and it reverberated. And so instead of her just seeing it as like you wanted to push her further, like always, it hit a sensitivity. What we can't control is how many times people are going to bump up against us, bug us, and, rattle us. But we can't control us. And, like, choose to be less rattled. Just choose, like, hey, man, I'm going to stay calm over here. Kind of being a little crazy. Okay, like, let's, and not even like that in a judgmental way, but to see and assess life for how it is. And stop worrying about how to change everything to be perfect and how you want it to be and have the new this and then you'll be better. It's like, just be better with you. Just be better from here, and then you get to make all these decisions based on what's actually happening in front of you rather than what has happened in the past to you.
Yeah.
But you have to be aware that that's going to creep up all the time. These things that we hold on to that happen to us are going to bump into us all the time. They're going to come up, and it's an active decision every day to say, like, I'm going to live not from that place anymore. Still, that's all that stuff happened to me, but that's not me. I'm here now. Here's my reaction now. And you see it in workouts. Sometimes people are like, you get them to do a push-up, like, I'll get people down and ready to do a push-up.
She's doing
and I'm
a
like,
push-up.
okay, go. I'm like, I can't. I'm like, you're the only one saying that. You're the only person
I
that says that.
fucking hate when
You know?
someone says I can't.
But people do that all the time with their everyday lives. They look on, they wake up in the morning and they go to their job that they don't like because they think, I couldn't get a new job.
Yeah, people are afraid to take a leap and fail. Like 100%. Like, I could talk about that for a long time. Too long.
It's really scary.
No, but fuck that. That's life. Like,
Yeah, but
life is scary.
And you hope to build people up enough where they learn to take a leap, and then they take another one, and then they take another one, and
The people who are successful are the ones who have failed many times prior. Like, that's just how it goes.
That goes back to what you asked originally. Like, you asked, who do we think in the area, or what set them apart differently than everybody else who succeeded? And I think it's one of the two ways you can either look at it is that they either they refuse to fail because they're always moving forward,
Yeah.
kind of like we just talked about. You have so much in your past, but the beauty of life is responding. And the other way to look at that is that they're not afraid to fail. So one of the two ways you look at that is going to happen. I think.
Well, that we don't see the failures. There might be things we don't know about.
Well, everybody has, and we all have.
But that's
for sure.
Absolutely.
That's the important part
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
is
Overcoming.
with with all this training is like, you know, how do we react to that, and how do we see it, right? Because if you can train people to see like, okay, I couldn't do 50 push-ups, I could only do 40. Well, what do we learn? We're gonna
40's pretty darn good though.
40's great.
Yeah.
Yes, but what I'm saying is like, how do we teach people to, instead of saying things like, why is this happening to me? But what am I learning from this? Like, how can I grow?
Yeah.
Because at the powerhouse, one of our ideals, now I gotta think of this with the values. Our core value, it's Kaizen, which is like getting 1% better every day.
Yeah.
And if you can encourage that type of self-awareness, self-study, those are the most fun athletes. Like, the most fun people to coach are the ones that are like, I'm here, let's go.
Yeah.
That want to learn, that want to be coached, that want to hear what they're doing, you know, and people don't do that in enough areas of their lives where they show up and they'd be like, all right, show me where I'm weak. You know, at work, hey, how am I doing? Okay, well, what could I, you know, and instead of seeing these things as like, telling you what you're not, showing you what you could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's just different ways to look at things, and
And
we're looking at lots of wrong stuff, man.
And
We're looking everywhere that's not right. It's like, hey, turn those eyeballs in, just for a minute.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think a lot of people, and it's hard to do self-reflection to figure out what's going on. It's easier to just, you know, keep doing the way things are.
And with that, a lot of times we have the option to choose what to do. And like, I'm sure you the same way, right? Like, growing up playing sports, like I was lucky enough to have great coaches, right?
Yeah,
And they
me too.
always preached on responding, whether it's like on the field with personal fouls or way in life or whatever the situation was, right? Is how you respond, and you have the choice to do it. So I know from a fact that myself, I'm sure many of us as kids growing up, we were all taught, you have the choice to go one way or the other, right? Now, we always don't want to make that right choice, but some do and some don't in certain situations. I think sometimes we just choose to be lazy. We choose the wrong thing because it goes back to what you were talking about earlier with you, was when someone comes into a 200-pound deadlift, but they can't touch their toes with their ring finger, is because that why inside, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, then I think some people, you know, I always say this, you know, I mean, it goes back to, it doesn't have to be the emotional side of things, but sometimes people don't want to do the things they need to do. They always want to do the things they want.
Exactly.
And I always say, you need to do the things you love to do. You need to sometimes do the things you hate. That's
You gotta
life.
do your laundry.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
right? Like, hey, like, you know what sucks? Hey, I'm going on vacation, but man, I gotta fucking drop like $2,000 to do this. No one likes doing it, but you know what? What's the end result? You had a great time.
Was it
Or you
fun?
had a life experience.
Yeah.
Like, I know, like, I went backpacking in Europe last year for 2.5 weeks. I spent a shit ton of money, but I know for me, it's all about the experience.
Yeah.
Did I worry about the $35 bottle of Guinness I bought in Switzerland? Fuck no. Because I was in Switzerland, so who cares?
Yeah.
Like, so I think sometimes people, and that's a different kind of example, but I think sometimes people aren't willing to do the things they need to do.
So, Katie, what do you teach at what's the name of it?
The powerhouse.
Powerhouse?
The Powerhouse.
Yeah,
What do you?
Powerhouse.
And that's in St. Paul.
We've got 2 locations. So
Okay.
our first location is in Highland Park,
Okay.
Powerhouse Side Door CrossFit. And we've got a second location that we just purchased, CrossFit St. Louis Park. So we've got the 2 locations.
Did you
and
buy out another gym?
Yeah, so when
Who was that?
It was Alchemies. There was the 3,
Sure. Yeah.
CrossFit St. Paul, CrossFit Minneapolis, and then CrossFit St. Louis Park. There were 3.
Yeah.
And then
Or you mean Union Fitness?
No. Yeah, Union.
Yeah,
Yes.
because they split up.
Yeah,
They
so we purchased St. Louis Park. Max and Jill, our owners, purchased.
No shit. That's no. I didn't. Okay, I knew they sold off because this. What's the guy's name? Is it Paul? Did he buy St. Paul and Minneapolis?
I don't know
Paul
anybody's
Watson.
name.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know their names, and I don't really know what's going on with the other 2. But it's great because we're expanding, and I think what we're offering that isn't necessarily happening in all CrossFits is we do mobility, like a lot of mobility, because for us, our athletes, we want them cleaning when they're 75.
Yeah.
Intelligently and with full range of motion, and
I think the
know,
best
so-
coaches think about that. Think 5 years ahead, or a year, 2 years, 3. Not, I want to get the PR in 6 months.
Yeah.
Right? That's
and,
great.
Those things come, right, over when you practice good technique and mobility and you're taking care of your body. But ultimately, I mean, CrossFit is awesome and super competitive and wonderful, but really what is great about it is that it gets you good at the fundamental movements. And it hit me when I was at level 1 and they were like, if you expect to live alone until you're 80, you better learn how to do some, push press. You better learn how to do a little thruster because you got to stand up and lift your, cookie jar up over your head or whatever it was. And it's like, oh yeah, that's the goal. The goal is to wake up. For me, fitness is all about waking up in the morning, and people have enough on their plates to be stressed about, their jobs, their kids, their relationships, their house, their money, everything. I could not imagine waking up not feeling physically good. Like having my shoulders ache, or having my hips ache, or my low back hurt, or going to have that's horrible, and that's happening all over.
And that's and it's not just in everyday gyms or your global gyms, but dude, that's happening everywhere. Like when I do these seminars, literally that's like some of the questions we start off with. Like, who has low back pain? 90% of the room raising their hand. Who has shoulder pain? 60. Who has whatever knee pain? And it's just like, that's not okay.
It's not okay.
It's not okay.
And
it's fucking not. How do you expect people to? Do you want them to keep paying a membership?
Well, exactly. And so when I do more of like a yoga warm up. A lot of the we do like banded hamstring floss and all that, and I'll take instead, and I'll go the yoga route because you can do that. And you can tell that some people get a little irritated by it. I think because they want CrossFit, they want fast, and I think one of our coaches was talking about you've got to be able to do the movement well, and then repetitions of the movement, and then do it under load. Like you can't go from 1 to 5. You've got to show that you can do all this stuff with control. And sometimes in CrossFit, people get so excited about the PRs because those are amazing. Mm-hmm. But I just think the PR is every day waking up feeling awesome.
No, you're right.
No, it's
And
great,
sometimes if you quit worrying about the PR,
right?
like that's something I know we've
comes.
talked about, and I mean I've done that in my training. Some other people here, I'm like, just train and have some fun. All of a sudden, those just come.
They come.
Right.
And I think it's getting over that why and just being, I think, fulfilled or happy with knowing that you're strapping up your gym, whatever, you strap up your gym bay, you put your equipment in there, you're just going to fight the battle to do whatever your goal is that day. Yeah. That's half the win right
Don't worry
there.
about what's on the bar, just where it doesn't feel heavy.
Well, exactly, and there's some people that you coach, and it's like I can see sometimes when people step up to the bar, it's like they're picking up way more than that bar. That lift, and I've had those lifts. You guys have had those lifts where it was more than the weight on the bar.
Oh fuck yeah! That's you got, and that's something.
But you have to teach them to not. You can't be in an angry place and take it out on the bar. You have to be able to still that and shut it out, and not really, because that's where the finesse in it, and that's what I love about Olympic lifting is when you approach it from. And I was Olympic lifting for a really long time, and I love Nick, and I love everybody that has ever coached me in Olympic lifting, but nobody coached me the way I needed to hear it, or I wasn't ready. It's like when the student is ready. And I was my own. One of my coaches that I work with, he taught me in a moment how to snatch, how to clean, and I never knew that you're throwing it from your hip. I never knew, and people don't know that. People walk up, they look at the bar, they set up, and they're like, all right, gotta pick this guy up. And you see it all the time because they're like this. They're here. They're in a hurry. They don't understand that it's a jump. And they don't understand how to jump because they're disconnected from their bodies. They don't know how to squeeze their butt and squeeze their stomach at the same time. They don't know how to jump up and down and catch in a position that's solid, that can sustain whatever weight is on the bar. And when they do connect, it's like Olympic lifting is beautiful, and it's so non-violent when it's done correctly.
That's what we always say is snatch is ballet with a bar, and clean and jerk is running over your ex-wife.
I'm an ex-wife, so
I know, that's why I went with it.
Wait a minute here. No. Wait.
No.
Oh,
You got it.
I got it now.
Or
I got
ex-husband, you got it. There.
No,
now.
namaste. Never ever something I would never
No,
say. But yes.
So what do you teach then specifically at the gym?
So I coach the workouts of the day.
Okay.
I do private training one-on-one.
Okay.
I do some semi-private training. I have some friends who like to work out together, couples
Yeah.
who like to work out together. I teach yoga,
Okay.
mobility classes.
What all kind of programs you guys got over there? So you guys have, you said you do a lot of mobility, yoga, CrossFit,
Yeah,
personal
so
coaching, or
we use Icon programming,
Okay,
Chris Spieler,
sure.
and then so we take that workout, that programming, and we have one of our coaches, Josh, and he and Meg work, and they
Meg.
Meg Walters. She's red hair.
Yeah, I did my L2 with her like 4 years ago. She's good shit. I like her. She's awesome.
I watch her snatch. She warms up her snatch with like
She's a
45
badass.
on.
Yeah. She's a
I'm
strong
like,
girl.
okay,
Yeah.
yes. Like it's so awesome. But girls need to see more girls like that. That's like high school girls need to see more. Little girls need to see more girls like Meg. You know that
I
are
agree.
because I don't know, for whatever reason, like Olympic lifting hasn't caught fire with like younger girls. Weightlifting hasn't caught fire with like high school girls, the ones that I know. And I
Yeah,
know a
it's
lot of,
really
like,
big in the
teens.
Twin Cities, and it is huge in Minnesota. We have a huge Olympic weightlifting, league within high schools. But the thing is, it's mostly around the metro and a little bit north and south. But
Yeah.
you go to most states, they don't have that. And you're right. And it's one of those
If
things.
I would have
that's-
found that in high school, I was like this weird little, I didn't go through puberty till like 20 or something. So if I would have found Olympic lifting in high school, that would have been my jam.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's one of those things too. It's transferable to every sport, depending on how you do it. You wouldn't ask a pitcher to do full depth snatches who throws how many pitches a game, but it's one of those things that it teaches body awareness, explosiveness, power, all that patience. Yeah, you're
you
right.
really gotta
Strength.
you gotta be focused.
And I think the tough thing with that is because those lifts are so technical, it takes someone very experienced with a lot of focus, patience to take the time to teach kids who are in their teenage years that may not have all that willingness to learn, but the ones that do, like you said, that may not even like it at first, but then all of a sudden you kind of find that fire for it.
Yeah.
So with the technicalities you're talking about within the snatch, or the clean, what you talked about, all the weight people carry in their lifts when you can see them having trouble pulling off the ground, having trouble getting over the shoulders. What helped you release that inner hookup, and what do you see within the people that you coach that you try to help them release that to reach their best? Was there anything specific, or is it for you? What do you look for? What do you try to help people on that status, if that makes sense?
I try to pay attention, and I try to practice this just in my daily life. I try to pay attention and notice when I'm really in a hurry, when I'm really anxious to get through something or get something done. And then I think why. Then I try to. Sometimes I just hurry and get it done.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'm like, okay, why am I being so aggressive in this workout? Or what am I really? What's going on? Hey you, how you doing? Because I can see it in yoga. They call it there's 3 different types of students. One is tamasic, where it's there's so and I used to be this way when I took yoga classes. I was like, I'm gonna get that handstand. I'm gonna hit it in front of the class. Everyone's gonna know that I can do the handstand. Nailed it. And then it was like, yes. And I used to think that way.
Yeah.
And it took me, being postpartum, and it took my journey to get to a place to be like, that person who was chasing it so hard, I was chasing something else. I was either running or chasing or whatever. There was something real deep that I was, and I, looking back, I know all those things that it was, and so I try to be as cognizant of that person and who I have the opportunity to be when I'm not paying attention, and when it starts to creep up, when I get really fixated on the music that's playing in my own workouts. I've recently just started listening to rolling ohms during my workouts because it centers my mind. Because otherwise, I'm working out and let me get my jam on. Here's my jam, right? Like I shouldn't be dependent on the music. I should be able to just do it from here. And so I'm trying to work out those kinks because that's another part of my. But people have to be aware that like you can have behaviors that are. And how do you get people to wake up? How do you do that? I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's some stuff that I know that we like to do. I mean, that's the thing, it can get so personal where, we'll do some stuff to heighten the system, all right, if it's a really heightened, parasympathetic movement or sympathetic or whatever it may be. And you can do some of that depending on if it's an explosive movement or slow and methodical, and it really does work. Like, and that's something too, if you have someone who's really pissed off, hey, you need to either we need to get rid of it or you need to go calm the fuck down. And it's something that we do here, and I don't tell the athletes, but afterwards, like I had a girl, well, you talked to her earlier, Nicole. She was losing her shit over some snatches, and because we were doing percentage work, and what are you doing? No, we're not. Yeah. So we have girls hugging friends.
Friends are.
I have no idea what the hell we were talking about.
So like you're talking about like I think to bring it back to those athletes.
So I
like
was asking how. Yeah.
Like how do you get people to do that really and I just try to talk about the breathing a lot. I try to the other week on Tuesday we were doing snatches. I started class with the lights off, and which kind of bugged some people. I know this. And I put the pads out and I started and I was like, listen, here's the deal. Snatch is a really technical movement that requires an incredible amount of awareness and also patience. And so right now, if you're already feeling agitated that the lights are off and that I'm chatting and that this isn't the warm-up the way that you've done, you need to look at, why are you in such a hurry? And I don't need the answer, but you need to ask yourself that, because that's something that doesn't have to do with here.
That's just something how you might start your day. I know for like me and other people I've known and worked on this stuff with, as soon as you go there, you're there. You have to do stuff. You guys do stuff so you don't. Like if you're already agitated about the small things, man, you're gonna have a shitty day.
That's what I'm saying is because it's never gonna end.
Yep.
Shitty things are
For
gonna happen
sure.
forever. So how do we make ninjas who are emotionally equipped to stay balanced and to not, when things go bad, not to go off the deep end and spend, get themselves into credit card debt, or to, do all the things that people do when things go bad. And on the other end of it, when things go great, that they're not so high on themselves. Like have you, what's the book? Lao Tzu, oh God, I don't even know how to say it. In the Tao, he talks about living in the Tao, and how your life every day to day, it's like a pendulum swinging, and when it goes too far in the one direction of things are so good and you overindulge, it's going to swing back as equally far the other direction. And the key to life is trying to figure out how to live right in the center.
Okay.
And to constantly be balancing your energy so that you're not too invested in your relationships or over invested in work, or only looking at your children, that you've got an equal distribution of your energy in healthy ways. But that requires self-reflection, which requires awareness.
That's huge. I think a lot of that too is checking your ego at the door. Like if you're coming in to
But
work
some
out,
people don't know they have one.
well, they need to they'll figure it out one way or another in life.
But will they?
Well, here's the other thing too. I think
Some
a lot of
people
that.
don't figure out that they have an ego.
I think
It's one thing to have confidence, another thing to, like you said, have ego like that. That's something.
They're two different things.
Yeah, I
Knowing
think a
your
lot of
strength
times,
is different than,
yeah.
But
even being self-aware of your strength, or what your strength is. And a lot of that too is being, as strong as you think you may be, or you're going to come in and show some of the best handstand, or you're going to squat 600 pounds a day. I think a lot of that is still leaving your ego at the door, but taking your headphones off, because it's not all about you. Maybe there's someone you can help give technique to, or you can help talk with, or just ask them how their day's going, instead of having your headphones blaring in your ears and just saying F the rest of the world, I'm gonna get my work in today. I think it goes a lot with that, of just being in the moment versus trying to walk in like you're the top dog every single day.
Which is also just a cover for some sort of insecurity, right? Like, that's a cover. And so I worked with this group of girls. They're a select soccer club in St. Paul called Eclipse. And we did yoga all last winter. And they're girls for ages like 6th grade, I don't know, to senior high. And I got them in a circle. We were going to do yoga. And I said, okay, let's go around and tell me your name. And this is what happened. So I was like, I'm Katie. I teach yoga here. I have 2 kids. I'm divorced. And I really love, what I do. And then the next girl goes and she's like, hi, I'm Sarah. And, I guess I'm, and on and on and on. And we got done. I was like, lady.
That's me.
Wait, how old are they?
They were in 6th grade, 7th grade, like they were in, these girls are. So I said, next week, here's the deal. We're all gonna come back. You're gonna tell me your name. You're gonna tell me one thing that's a strength of yours, and then one thing that when you wake up in the morning, you're excited about. Because I had asked them that same question, I had asked them that, and their answers were like, I don't know, lunch, and my friends, or bedtime. People said they woke up in the morning and were excited about bedtime. And so I said, because girls, if we don't start now listening to the things that we like, the things that we don't like, the things that we do, we lose track of time, our passions, how do you know who you are? And if you don't know something that you're strong and you have a strength at, there's difference between being confident and just knowing, I'm a pretty great yoga teacher. And I can say that without an ego. I can say, like, I know that that's a strength of mine. And I go, if you don't have an answer for me, you're gonna do 25 burpees on the spot, so you choose. And the next time we came and we power posed, because power posing changes your hormone level in your body. Like it's proven. Have you ever seen any of the TED Talks?
Yeah.
There's one on power posing, you should look it up. And so I made him power pose, because what happens is if you're nervous to do something, you should power pose for 3 minutes. Standing like this for 3 minutes lowers your cortisol level and raises your testosterone. It's proven.
PRs.
Isn't that crazy?
Day.
Next day.
Like it could
Power
be like
pose,
any
yes.
sort of, position where you're claiming your space.
Can you walk like that, or you just gotta stand still?
A stand. Or, I think you could just be you and wherever you are. And
Dude, Sven did that all the time.
He does now.
He does that all the time. That's why he looks
That's
like
the
he's
secret.
35 and he's so jacked. Sorry, inside
no,
joke.
it's a thing, and so
He does, man.
just like this.
I'm
all
doing
the
it
time.
now.
It's the
Yep,
power
that's
pose.
it.
That's it.
I'm gonna start.
I mean, isn't that
busted.
crazy? And
Yeah.
so I had these girls do it, and I don't know. We got down to talking about, we got down to some really serious stuff, and at one point I made all these groups of girls sit in silence for 4 minutes and stare at somebody in their eyes the whole time. And I sat there like the police. I was like, don't move. We're not laughing.
I bet that
Eye
got
contact.
dark.
Well, so then I asked, I said, what was that? What did you feel? And a lot of them felt, they said, connected,
Scared.
seen. And one of the girls said that we're the same. And that was really, for me, because people walk around all the time and they think it's just all about them, right?
Yeah.
No matter where we came from, or whatever God you want to call it, whatever you want to name it, it's the same place, right? Like you didn't get here in a UFO, I'm assuming, right, Tony?
Yeah.
So we all got here the same way. And so once we are able to, instead of look at somebody across the room and see the immediate things that make you different, you can see the one thing that makes you the same, and that's all you need. And you don't judge people, and you don't, because we're just walking along doing the best we can. But people harbor this feeling that they're not good enough, or that they're, because of all this different stuff, and we're not looking at each other and not looking inside. We're looking to buy a new shaker bottle or a new jacket or, you know, go to the best place for vacation. Like I said, on and on. And it's so simple. It's in looking at each other. It's looking at ourselves. And that's where we get to step into this place of awareness, and we get to grow from that place. But you have to be willing to, you've got to be willing to open up to the journey, to go inside.
And kudos to you too for having the awareness to grab this young group of girls and challenge them to reach what their true potential is. And a little thing like that ends up being something that may stick with them for the rest of their life.
Especially at that age.
Oh, it's totally influential. And maybe because you probably had something obviously happen within your training to bring to them.
Girls are mean to each other, and you know, girls, and I'm sure boys are too, but I'm a girl, so that's my experience. And a lot of the stuff, the insecurities that I carried around for so long were wounds left by other women in my life, which is crazy, because what are we doing to each other? And so I said, I go, girls, there was one session where I said, I want you to imagine one thing, that if you had to say it out loud in front of all of us right now, you would just want the earth to open up and swallow you up, and you'd want to disappear. I go, think about that. I was like, I know mine. I was like, what holds you back from standing in the middle of all of us and saying it? Why won't you say it? And they went around and they were like, well, because then people will look at it, or the people will notice, or they'll make fun of me. And I go, why do you think that? Why? And I was like, is it because you do it to other people? Why do you do it to other people when you know how crappy it feels? You're the same. And we inflict so much harm on each other, and that harm accumulates into disturbances, and it accumulates, and people carry it around their whole life, and then they come into the gym and they're overweight and they want to get in shape, and they can't even touch their toe. Because they're still living in this place where some girl was mean to them, or some boy was mean to them, or their parents died, or whatever. And it's like, how do you shake these people and say, that sucks, I'm sorry, but it's not right now. Okay, right now you're here. And if we can get ahead of where the wounds get inflicted, we can't control all of it. Bad things are going to happen to people all the time. People are going to be mean. You can't ever say that you're, but if we can equip girls, young girls, as an army of like, your light doesn't dim because hers shines. Do you understand that, right? Like, she can be a bright, shiny supernova, and so can you. And it doesn't subtract, or you can just be you. And that's good enough. And it's crazy, because girls shop in Sephora and Ulta and the Mall of America, and they climb the stores to find the shirt that's gonna make them cool, or the makeup that's gonna make them look beautiful, or to be better, because they gotta be better for somebody. Because somebody in their life has got them thinking that they're not good enough, because on the radio, it's like, do you not like your hair crunchy? Well, use this shampoo, it'll make it soft, so you'll be beautiful, so you can be loved. Because that's the only way you get love. And we gotta stop teaching that. We gotta get ahead of that. And that starts with compassion, and it starts with, you know, I think young girls, I don't know, it's a good place to start, right?
So you were saying this Meg at the gym was kind of like an influencer for a lot of women. Is that what you want to be going forward too? With obviously where you are now, but going forward, do you want to try to be?
I don't know. I mean, I think and it's funny because she knows, like, I've been on this like quest of like, what do I want all of this to be, and what do I want to do with it? Because, you know, there's the girls that stand in front of the mirror and take butt selfies, and they're super successful. And shout out those girls, as long as they're doing it from a standpoint of they're taking the selfie and they're being like, what? And they're not taking the selfie being like, is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's two different ways to go about that, but the posts look the same. Those girls that do that, I think they're incredible and strong, and I'm not trying to say anything bad about it, as long as they're posting from that place. But the problem is that young girls see that stuff, and they don't know how to tell the difference between the girl who's posting it because she's like, look at this hard work, or the girl that's like, right? They don't know. That's all that they see, so they start doing it from whatever place they're doing it from. And it's so.
That's something I had a discussion with a member a few days ago about that. Like, we both agreed, like, I would be scared to death to have a daughter right now because of that. Like, I don't. The hell do you tell them?
You know what
I don't know right now, but like now you look at that, it's like, where are we at in 5, 10 years?
But you know, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the scary thing.
It's a scary thing.
I have a boy. I have 2 boys, and as far as being a parent of boys, I think it's just my responsibility to, you know, make them aware that feeling and all these things, like, they're not weak qualities. You know, we all feel. We all, because, you know, some people had parents that said that wasn't okay or that was girly.
I think that's what most of us go, like, guys. You're not a man if you show emotion.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
Which is,
right?
It makes sense because we've got, you know, right?
That's just the way it is. You ain't a
But
man.
with that too, there's a you know, we all mature in different ways, different times, and become confident in who we are, whether it's socially or physically or whatever. But I think the big part of that goes is going back to the basics of just be a good person, just be kind, and like you said.
But some people don't have kind relationships to model that off.
Yeah,
of,
you're right. I was lucky. You're right. No,
you know,
you're
some
right.
people
yeah,
have.
you're right.
Some people are only mistreated, and so it's like those people are out there sending more energy out, and people bump against them, and you know, it's just this. It's a human project, which means it'll never be solved completely. But I think that the more people we can get to wake up and to practice the idea that yes, this is CrossFit, and the goal is that you get a ring muscle up in a year, and that your Fran time is, you know, whatever.
It's a big goal.
But right?
Fuck yeah.
But
It's never happening.
the real goal is like unlocking some stuff.
Yeah.
And
So do you communicate with your athletes with as much emotion as you are now during your training sessions?
Yeah.
Is that kind of something that just naturally comes with you, or do you
Yeah.
purposely pull it out when you see
yeah,
it
I
start?
can cry and command. You tell me a sad story right now.
I don't
like,
want
I
to.
just live very on the cuff of my emotions. But
You're all positive.
Friday Night Lights,
Yeah.
a fucking ball.
But you know, it's because it's really because people, and I've had people say like, oh, you know, I'm just giving myself permission to just be myself because I have tried to be other people for a long time.
So
I'm tired of that. And it's a magical thing when you just step into who you are. And then you allow other people the same safety to be who they are. And that's what I try to do in yoga, is create a space where whatever you need to deal with, you can deal with. And you can do it here without judgment, without, you know, just compassion.
So who are you?
Oh my God. I'm the listener.
That was deep.
I'm the breather.
That's awesome.
Well, I think that's a huge thing too. Like you said, I don't think there's two sides to that. Where, you know, a lot of coaches, yeah, you could be a performance coach, or you could be someone who's really trying to help people. But I think you can be both at the same time. Like, if you're a performance coach and you have someone who is having a tough time with whatever your sport may be, I mean, how can you not reach them emotionally to make them better, right? But I think at the same time in the fitness industry, like we talked about, like I think the emotional side is the next step. It has to be.
I think it's the first step.
You're right.
You know, but getting them in the door is
But-
that's a big enough step, right?
Yes.
There's so many monumental things that can happen along a fitness journey.
Well, that's
you're
that's
right.
what I changed about my business a long time ago, about 2 years ago. I started, you know, we call them interviews, and it's to make it a little more exclusive to try and get in the door. But at the same time, it's, you know, first thing I say is like, why do you want to be here? What do you want to get out of it? That's what I go. We're going to go over the what and whys, and they're kind of like, want to learn about the gym? I'm like, no, you're going to tell me about you right now. And I catch a lot of people off, and some of them might probably turn them off about it, but I'm like, it doesn't matter what I have to offer. Well, why do you want to be here?
Yeah.
And most of the time, people, they will open up, sometimes really quick, which is surprising. And as soon as you do that, and then all of a sudden connect with them and start explaining why you may offer CrossFit or weightlifting or fucking that jumping, what's that stuff where you're doing a bouncy ball? Or I don't know. It doesn't matter what you do, but if it's to help people for the right reasons,
Yeah.
then they're going to trust you.
Yeah.
So
It is. It's a very. I think that we are on the front lines of mental health.
Absolutely. We're one of
Hell yeah.
together.
You know?
Well, that and just, I think health in general, but that's, I just don't think people like to say that. Mental
No.
health is it's something that we just veer away from.
Yeah, but that's
100%.
that's what people are really in here, either coping from or that's why I think trainers and coaches and people who are working in the fitness industry, looking into some like counseling certifications, or I was just talking to somebody about like cognizant behavioral change, or I can't remember what exactly it was, but because you have this opportunity when people are moving physically, they're moving energy around and in their energy centers, and you'll have the person who cries. I mean, I've cried a lot in workouts, because it's like sometimes you get there to that place and you're staring at whatever it is, and can you teach people how to tap into their parasympathetic state in their nervous system through breath to pull out of that, so that they feel like they, because if you can show people that you do have control over your emotions, you can take yourself from a place of complete panic, because the body doesn't know the difference between dropping your phone face down on some cement and a live bear behind you, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people out there driving around in their cars, and they're having crazy reactions to acute stress, and then it builds into chronic stress, and then these people have, they're moving towards chronic disease, and it's so much. It's honestly, how do you
So how do you fight that?
how do you get people in the driver's seat
Yeah.
of their own bodies and their emotions, and say, like, you have a choice? Because we teach kids, like, we say to kids all the time, like, you have a choice about your attitude, or you have a choice, and it's like, how do you show them where in the moment of the decision making process how to make that decision? Like, how do you train them? And I don't know.
Well, I think you said it right. I think you already have the answer. I think it's something that we don't do as coaches, because most people don't know how, but through that breathing. That's something that, with these strong fit seminars we coach right away, is, breathing in nasally, inhale, exhale.
Do you do any like pranayama? You should look into some pranayama and use that as supplementation, because it's the same deal, nasal breathing, but you add a restriction to the throat.
Okay.
So you're actually strengthening like the tissues in your lungs. So it sounds like
Really?
this. It's like a
strong.
snore.
It's like strong.
Yeah, so
It's-
you restrict the muscles of the throat, and then you can push air in and out with control. So it's like when you breathe just normally, it swirls in your nasal
Yep.
cavities and just kind of goes around. But when you restrict the back of the throat and create a vacuum, it's like a tunnel going in and out. So it's got a lot of power and force to it, and it helps to build heat in the body, slows the mind. There's a lot of incredible benefits
So
to
do you
it.
find any differences, obviously there are a lot, but that you find between coaching men and women? Or what are your
No,
opinions on
I
that?
think it's all dependent on the athlete, on the person. I love the athletes that come and they're just eager to learn. They're ready, just to like, all right. And those are the people who are open, and people who are open they're always willing to consider stuff. So you get to plant seeds while you're coaching, where you can leave things for people to think about, which is a really cool
Huge.
part of it. Because if you can get people connected more to what's happening in their physical body, they're paying attention to it. Maybe they're going to notice a little sooner if their stomach hurts or something's off, or they can then notice, hey, when I eat dairy, it doesn't sit well with me, right? But people don't even know those little things about themselves, because their energy is just spread so thin. They don't have time to like sit and reflect on, man, I didn't like this, or when this happened. It's like people are just on autopilot, cruising around through their days, going to their workouts, doing things mindlessly, and it's because we're stressed, we're overworked, we're a lot of things. So I don't know. anytime I tell people like, come to yoga, they're like, oh, yeah, I don't know if I have time. And it's like, okay, well then please make some time for self-reflection, because we all need it, like your vegetables and protein, you know? Water.
Yeah, that's frustrating is when people have the excuse, every excuse not to come in, but then when things don't go their way, it's either your fault as a coach or it's, well, this didn't happen or this didn't happen. It's like, well, sometimes you just need to make the time. Like you should, no matter what, even if it's just meaning not coming in here and just go have a vacation, do some stuff for yourself rather than work your ass off or whatever. We had a member who a few years back, he switched his jobs and because he's overworked, he's a whole new person.
Yeah.
Like, he's the happiest guy here.
But people don't, if they don't have anything to compare it to, people are just living, and we have a lot of doctors who are clients at the gym, and it's a very interesting demographic, like the middle-aged man. Like he was saying, like, they've usually hit this place in their life where they've maybe hit a ceiling of their career. They've got kids, so they're kind of stressed out. Their marriage is challenging because they've got little kids. Their scheduling is all over the place, and this place in life where they don't feel like they've got any sort of power, and which connects to another one of my clients was telling me, who's a doctor, and she's like, this is suicide season now. She works in the ICU, and she's like, it's suicide season until the end of January. Suicide after suicide after suicide. Missed suicides, that's what she sees. It's where they're keeping them alive. And why does that stuff happen? Because they couldn't, this person was so troubled by whatever it was, and they never found a place for that, and they, felt alone, and, and I don't know, it's just, people need to get more in touch with their inside self, and it's really hard to offer up. I mean, can you imagine? I'm at a CrossFit gym, and we have a lot of really dedicated yoga students, but it's very different than CrossFit. CrossFit's go, 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 and we do, but you need that yoga training to be able to go, go, go.
You have to even the body out, not just physically, but mentally, like everything. If you go too far one way, you're going to break. It's just the way it is.
So I'm on a mission to just get people to their yoga mats, and I love working with teenage girls. I just love getting into like their thought process and learning, and how do you just empower these girls to be better to each other, to be better to themselves, because we got to start growing self-aware people all over the place. And there's a lot of people who are aware and practice that mindfulness out there, and it's hard to push it onto other people because you don't want to push them too far in the other direction where they don't want to come.
For sure, that's a hard place.
It is a hard place, and I would love to develop something that helps people self-counsel. People who can't afford counseling, people who can't, maybe don't have the time. It's like, how do you give something to somebody that they can do on their own? That's like a a step-by-step. I don't know.
Do they have like, I'm out of this world, so I have no idea. Do they have like therapy yoga? Do they have like?
I ran into I was at Lululemon on Mother's Day, and this woman came in, and she was offering a yoga teacher training for people in recovery. So she was teaching a whole weekend, and she would teach us a yoga sequence and tools that mirrored the 12-step recovery program. And she's saying, like, people, that's what they're needing right now is recovery, because when it goes too far, right, that coping goes too far, that's what we get into is addiction. And alcohol and drugs are the only one that people, gambling and all that too, but there's addiction to like shopping at Target.
Oh yeah.
Or decorating your house, or there's addictions out there that are socially acceptable.
Yeah.
And so, but people need movement, and when people move, you have the opportunity to unlock things, and that's a very sacred place, and it should be treated as such. And how do we get more coaches the tools to guide people in a direction where they're looking to do the inside work? Who knows?
Absolutely. You said you're a Lululemon. You work with them as well.
I'm an ambassador there.
Ambassador, okay.
Yeah, so I love that. I'm so grateful for that and the whole community, but I have something to say.
Yeah.
I have a lot of things to say very clearly.
Have you
but I don't know
done-
exactly what it is.
Have you done any motivational speaking with any group of kids here or there, or adults, or anything within Lululemon or at the gym or anything recently? It seems like you're
No.
very inept to do it.
I would love to do it, but I don't know if I have something like that. I am more interested in the discussions.
Sure.
You know, to get people thinking about things. Like, I don't know. I'm still figuring my own stuff out, man.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm not in a place to say, like, this is how you live your life. Like, I don't know. I'm not here to offer that. What I am here to do is say, like, I'm trying to live a better my life with these tools, and some days it goes great, some days it sucks. But you know, like namaste, I keep at that practice, and I just try.
And I'm guessing the consistency helps a lot too. Just coming back day in and day out and finding inspiration in all different ways. Like as a guy probably watching Rocky, they get super inspired to go to the gym and you know, stuff like that, or whether it's yoga, or like the biggest thing with me, like you guys were talking about earlier, is Olympic lifting, how quiet and peaceful it is, where I don't know how in the world you stay that connected and tight and perform that lift when you're expected to pull all that weight over your head. It's incredible.
Well,
that probably goes back to what you teach as well, from the breathing.
Time, patience, too
Patience.
much patience. It's
Patience is hard.
it's hard. It's a really hard thing to coach. But it's so gratifying though when you see someone hit that aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
You see that light bulb. It just takes a lot of time though.
Yeah, it does. But it's worth it. I mean, that's the practice. It's a practice. And I think if more people had a practice that wasn't just yoga or just CrossFit, it was like just a life practice where I'm just trying to be a little bit better today. Whether it's, I'm a little more patient today. Maybe today it's all about patience. How can I practice more of it today? Or, tomorrow it's resiliency or whatever. It's like these big things. How can we bring more of that stuff into our life? I don't know.
So for you, even though you're still battling through all this and finding your way along the journey, what got you into this? What was your opening step to get in the door to find your journey into this?
I had really bad postpartum depression and anxiety with my first.
Yeah.
People think that it's like you don't love your kid. It was like I was waking up in the middle of the night. I would worry that when I was walking back to bed with him that I was going to trip and fall out the window and that we were both going to die. Like those were the thoughts that I had.
Yeah.
Like, and that was a very real thought. Like I was like, I need to be careful so I don't trip and fall. And even though that is a crazy feeling, I couldn't pull myself away from that.
Sure.
And I got to this place where I remember one day I looked in the mirror and I hadn't showered in a bunch of days, and I just felt like I love this little person so much, but is this all that I am now? Is just, which it's an incredibly important role, but I felt like I need more. And there's a whole nother level of like mom guilt and all of that, but I knew I needed more, and I knew I needed to heal from where I was at. And that was the first time that I really think I came to my yoga mat and was ready to show up and be like, all right, I'm here to do the work. And I did the work over and over again, and it started to help. And some days were really hard and some days were bad, but I knew I definitely correlated feeling better with practicing and sweating and moving. And it's a slippery slope because you see people overdo it too. And that's how I reconnected, and then I went through teacher training and I learned all these different things. I was a different person before teacher training, and and there's a lot of people who are anxious out there, and it's kind of this thing where people are just afraid to say it, and a lot of us are really anxious because we're worried about the future, which is unknown. And people think that when you say you have anxiety and depression, it's like, oh, they have anxiety and depression. It's like, no, it's really active. It's all
such
over
a
the
bad
place.
thing.
It's such a bad thing, and it's like, so if I said I had, Crohn's disease, would you, that's a physical thing. So that's, everybody's having that discussion now. I mean, people are realizing that mental health is a real, but that was what got me through it. And I love the feeling of thinking, I wonder if I can do that, and then trying, and then not doing it, and then trying again and not doing it, and then maybe one day doing it. Because it translates into the rest of my life. Where I'm like, all right, I took a leap there, I pulled more weight up than I thought I could, I'm gonna try something new here, and that resiliency and that toughness starts to permeate into all the other areas of your life.
I think that's huge. Is usually the coaches are. It doesn't matter if you're a teacher or it doesn't matter what your profession is. If you're in the business of helping people, if you don't have a way of doing it, like we spoke about this earlier, you have to do it your way, so to speak, to where you're passionate about. Otherwise, you're never going to stick to it. Then you're never going to.
They're never going to hear you because you're not speaking with your voice.
Exactly, and then you're never going to seek knowledge. It's just going to be like, oh, it's good enough. No, this is not how it works.
Yeah.
You should always be seeking to get better, no matter what route it is. Yeah, and I think that's really. I always am very intrigued by coaches who think outside the box, because those are usually the ones who change things, right?
Yeah, I'm still developing how I want to do this because it's, still so new to me. But I just want the people that I work with to feel better because, like I said, people have enough stuff to worry about. To not have to worry about your shoulders aching at night so bad that you can't sleep. That just breaks my heart that there are people out there feeling like that.
Well, that's the thing. And if you ask them, it's like, why? Well, because that was the workout of the day. Yeah, but why?
Or it's like somebody who sits at a desk all day and, they don't have the time because they're overextended in every other area of their life. They don't make the time or whatever. But if you can get real simple information, so the Powerhouse works with the Minnesota Pipefitters Union.
Okay.
And so I can't remember the name of I think his name's Dave. He's the president of the union, and he looked at how much money they were spending on healthcare, like, Bob going to the doctor to get he had a cold, or this person, they sprained their ankle or whatever, and decided that he was going to bring it all in-house. So the Powerhouse got brought in, and we work with the physicians and the chiropractors, our coaches do, and they're having numbers that are mind-blowing. There was a woman who last year her numbers in her blood levels, she was diabetic on insulin, and then this past September or October, she did her levels again, and she's no longer on insulin. She's not diabetic anymore. All through the work that she's done, at the Powerhouse and with the chiropractors and the physicians. And did you watch Dave Glassman? He did a talk at somebody's level 1 or level 1 somewhere.
Greg Glassman?
Greg Glassman.
Yeah.
Gosh, what did I say his name
Dave.
was? Dave.
That's okay.
Greg.
You said Dave earlier too. That's why.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. So Greg. Yeah. Who is Dave? I don't know. So Greg, he talked about how the doctors and physicians that he's been working with are saying, we don't have the answers to chronic disease. We have the solutions to the symptoms of chronic disease. We can give you the high blood pressure medicine and, lower the cholesterol and all of that. But CrossFit is what has the answers to curing chronic disease, which is fitness. It's taking an athlete from sickness to wellness to fitness. That's like real stuff. I mean, we had a guy who was supposed to have a knee surgery, like an $80,000 knee surgery, and the work that he's done, now he doesn't have to have the surgery. I mean, those are dollars that you can't lie.
Well, 100%.
That's
Something that it's a damn shame, especially with how that's a whole nother discussion, how our health insurance is developed or done in this country. But it's all about, let's just cure the symptoms quickly rather than going after the problem, right? So
buy the new phone, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Your marriage
right?
will be fine. Just go buy that new iPhone.
It baffles me.
It'll be great.
It's scary to think where we're going to be even 20 years from now from that, with how much chronic disease we have, obesity rates.
He said that
it's
20
insane.
years, it's going to be like you go to the ER, and if you have a broken arm, you're going to have to wait a day or two because there's going to be so many people who are having amputations and heart attacks because of diabetes.
So with that, are you guys at the Powerhouse pretty influential in nutrition as well?
So we just did, Jill, our owner, and another one of our coaches, Gina, just did it's called CHIP program, Complete Health Improvement Program, and it takes these people that enter the program, and it has them look at, nutrition and learn how to navigate, because there is so much information out there, and people are lost.
Oh, there's too much.
There's too much information.
There's way too much.
So that's getting those things that are going to have a real change, where people are going to really have strategies to say, like, okay, I know that if I'm going to make this decision, this is where I'm at, but I know I can make this decision. So,
That'd be interesting. I'd like to learn more about that. That's something with, with our onboarding process. We talk about nutrition, but it's literally like, they're like, well, aren't you going to say, give me a meal plan? I'm like, you can find a fucking meal plan online for free. How about we talk to you about, creating some behaviors?
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. I'm like, I don't want you to become a sheep and just read this thing.
Yeah.
I want you to be able to make cognizant decisions and, do them all for yourself.
Well, and
right?
unearth why did I make those nutritional decisions that don't benefit me? What's that? Because that's the scars that we've inflicted on each other. That's, it's late at night and feeling lonely. I'm gonna need to go downstairs.
You're right, and that would help a lot of gyms. All of a sudden, let's say if you do get down to that why, like why are you eating that ice cream? Why are you doing this? Why are you drinking? Why are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you emotionally eating? All of a sudden, hell, I bet most gyms would probably have a 20% increase in membership. You know what I mean? Seriously, it'd be that simple.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things.
People aren't ready to.
No, they're not ready.
They're not
to,
ready to say that, because
No.
it's the thing that they don't want to say in front of people, because they think the world would eat them up and people would make fun of them. And it's like, we just need to create as coaches a space where it's like, hey, what's going on? And you're not listening to be like, hey, what's going on? Tell me. But it's like,
it's
hey,
hard.
what do we need to deal with? Okay, here we go.
I think that's something that, it's so easy when it's an athlete that you've had for years, because then
Yeah.
you just know.
Well, and sometimes you don't have to ask; you just learn.
Well, yeah, or they'll fucking tell you, which is great that they have that kind of trust in you.
I'm gonna wear my
But-
pants.
You gotta go potty?
I'm gonna go potty.
Yeah, you gotta go potty. We'll just sit here and wait. Podcast is rolling.
One listening, especially all the young girls who will probably look up to you and want to figure
Well,
out.
I don't know if they look up to me, but
Well, you might be able to talk. No. But what would you say to motivate them to find their passions, to dig into what they want to when they're nervous or afraid, or anyone really who's afraid to even step into a gym because of the mantra, or whatever it may be they're passionate about? What advice would you have for them?
oh man.
You can run to the bathroom again if you want to think about it.
What would I say? Okay, I guess I would think about what would I say to, I guess I would tell myself, my younger self, and this is who I think I'm looking to reach.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
is why I'm so passionate. Is you'll be okay, and that this is a limitless, infinite universe. You can do whatever you want to do, but you gotta want it. You gotta show up. And you gotta be willing to take and do whatever work comes along with whatever it is that you want. And I see a lot of women. I can tell a lot of women. They'll say like, "Oh my gosh, I could never do what you're doing," and I'm like, "Yes, actually, you could. You could, because I'm not any different. I'm just there showing up." And so, I guess to the women, where I was at when I was a little bit older, is like, don't be afraid to try. I know that's really cliche, but when people get over that first trying, they do it. It's like, oh, people don't come out and be like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
People are generally supportive, and especially when you work. People don't understand that when you work in the fitness industry, it's because you love it. Hopefully, it's because you love it and you want to give the gift of it to other people. And so seek somebody out. Shout me out. I'll help you.
That's awesome. Thank you. And then, how How can people reach you? What do they find you on social
Oh
media?
gosh.
What's
Okay.
your,
Well, I'm on Instagram.
what's your,
Katy Irmen.
okay,
KatyIrmen.
awesome. What's the
And the Powerhouse.
Powerhouse?
I think the handle is the Powerhouse MN Minnesota. But I've got the link for it on my Instagram, and yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for coming here. This is great.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks
so
for
much. That was
having
really
me. I
good.
hope we can do this again. I know I'm
Hell
a little
yeah.
bit of a chatterbox, but
No, it's good. No, it's good.
What
Rather have a
can I
chatterbox, someone
say?
doesn't talk at all. Yeah, she kind of was asking us questions at the beginning. She put us on the fucking pedestal here. Like, hey.
We
No, it's
could
been
do
good.
like a funny thing in the future where like you get a bunch of like big burly men through one of your like yoga classes or whatever.
I would do yoga
Yeah, we
here.
sit there. That's what I mean. Like, if
Could
came
you
here, we
please
could,
get a
like,
yoga thing going here? I've tried
Well,
for
so-
years.
So, I mean,
Years.
Let's get a picture with her before she leaves real quick.
Hold on.
I look like a.
Look at us. I think the real you
I
is
was